I come from a family who loved to write, and my mother loved telling stories, and she told them brilliantly. She never wrote them, but she told them. And she told me the story about friends of my family who, my uncle Greg was a pilot, and he used to be an opera singer, and he was shot down by my dad. He and my dad were on opposite sides of the war, but they became best friends after the war and share scars. Look at this one. This is what you did to me. This is what you did to me. Because Italian and, of course, South Africa fought with the British. So they were friends of my folks. And my mom would tell me the story about how they met. He was a prisoner of war, and she saw him and he saw her at the camp, and he had to sing and he had to find a way to be able to see her again. And he saw her and she saw him. She was in the audience and he was on stage, and they had this instant connection. And he broke out of prison to see her and broke back in again so that he wouldn't be caught. And I thought this was such a cool story. It was my best fairy tale ever. And it kind of churned in my head for years and years, and I knew I needed to share the story. It was such a beautiful one, and it took me 4 decades, but finally I decided to write it as a screenplay, which I did, and I learned a lot, and it was an interesting experience. And when the movies weren't made, I wrote a book. I was nurtured by a group of writers that I was lucky enough to find it in my area, and they really nurtured me and helped me, because I hadn't a clue. I'd never written a book before, and they were wonderful. So what happened was, when I originally wrote this as a screenplay, it was a beautiful story. It was the story of my Uncle Greg and my Auntie May, and it was just beautiful. The prisoner of war camp was lovely. They used to have Italian food, and the brass used to eat at the mess because the food was so delicious. And so when I had this as a screenplay, the first producer that I had said, this is a lovely story, but Hollywood doesn't like lovely stories. We need conflict. And I agonized over that for too long, because I wanted to tell their story as it was. And then I thought, well, you stupid girl, you only have one shot. Do it. And I changed their names, and that really liberated me, because then I was able to make him a little bit more of a womanizer and her a little bit more promiscuous, and then the story took hold of me. I had very little to do with it other than put my fingers on keys, and they told me what they wanted to do. So it's wonderful. I think, and I've seen golfers, I don't golf, but I've seen golfers who hit that sweet spot. And I think that's how writing feels, when you know that it's right for you. And that's how I felt when I wrote the Serenade. And it takes somebody else to point out to you that it's really not. In fact, I'd never written anything before I wrote a screenplay. So, and I learned this craft because I knew War Serenade I wanted to see it on the screen. And that's the whole reason I started writing, was that I could read, that I could create this thing that would become a moving picture. And so I really spent a lot of money learning my craft for years. And then I went to LA, and it's a very thwarting process when you're pitching in LA, in these big screen fests. You have 2 minutes, and you've got 2 minutes before the bell rings and you get kicked out of your chair and somebody else takes your place to impress somebody. So it's like an adrenaline rush second to none. So I snagged a producer by the grace of God. And in fact, he was the one who said to me, this is too happy. You've got to give me some conflict. I did give him conflict, and I'll never forget the call. He called me up. Somebody's not going to even recognize this anymore, this sign of the telephone anymore. But he called me up and he said, now we have a movie. And I was so excited. It was the most beautiful words I'd ever heard. And 3 months later, we stayed in touch, and he signed an option for a year, and he came back from the AFI, the American Film Festival, and he said, I've got 3 money people. They're excited about it. I'm getting together with them soon. And the next call I got was from his director, who was going to direct my movie, and she said he died. He had a heart attack and passed away last night. So, I mean, I was devastated for him and his family, and I was also devastated selfishly for me. And I went on and forgot about writing. And then I was dabbling in Zebra as a script too, but then I got a call from the director who had been attached, and she had a South African company who was interested. So they signed me up on an option, and I thought, oh, lovely. But then there I really learned the difficulty of having to let go of your script, because everybody, it's a collaborative medium and everybody wants to change your words. So it was a very difficult experience and a very eye-opening one. And the movie never got made. The story was really my husband's, because that was literally his life. He grew up in a hotel, in a remote hotel. He had a best friend who looked after him and taught him nature. And the army did use him, my husband, to garner information from various sectors for their benefit. And it wasn't anything you volunteered for. They were conscripted to fight. So these boys of ours who grew up had a hard time because they were always at war and protecting the borders. So it was a difficult thing, because it was important to me that I broach the perspective of the white and the Zulu, and that we as a reader understand the complexities of both people, and why they are as they are, and why we don't understand each other a lot of the time. So it was a fine line. And when I proposed this book to my editor, who was exceptionally straight-laced and conscious of anything that might be even minutely unkosher, she said to me, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I said, you know what? It's history, and it feels like a story that needs to be told, because ultimately it is indeed the Black people who won South Africa. And it's been under Black rule since 1992. But there was a whole long way they had to go and we had to go to be able to get there. And honestly, now when I go home, or I was last home about 5 years ago, but it's so, people treat each other so respectfully. They didn't when I was there. There was a definite differentiation between the English and the Afrikaans. There was a huge chasm between us, and how we, as English-speaking South Africans, treated the Black people in our country, and how the Afrikaans-speaking did. And now that's not there anymore. It's truly the Rainbow Nation, as was their goal, has definitely melded people of all cultures and natures. Even the language now includes, and the slang words includes all of the languages, as opposed to just English and Afrikaans, which I was used to. So I hope my goal was to let people know that there are two sides to every story, and that true friendship can overcome anything, even that great divide. Which we've moving the goalposts is what really worked for me, because somebody said, to hell with them all, write a book. And that wasn't even something that I even conceived or thought of. And so that opened up a whole different artistic part of my brain too, because of course you've got 442 pages that you can have characters talk to each other versus 110 pages in a script. So it really embellished what I'd begun as a screenwriter. So definitely, by moving those goalposts, I grew, and my craft grew. So, and I think that's true in life too. If you kick down, and you have to get a new goal, because otherwise you'd wallow.